is Edward, and I'm one of the maintainers of Drashland. And I'm just going to be giving a tutorial on how to use the create app script that Drash provides. On the right, I currently have the documentation up for the create app script. By the time of the recording, this documentation is only available on the staging environment of Drashland, but it will be released onto the production site hopefully this Friday. So Drash provides a create app script that can create a boilerplate project for you that is a Drash application in a simple command. There are kind of four options it will provide. So you can create a boilerplate for a web application, and it will create and write code into the files that's required for a web application. So copy over your resources that you need for a basic server, add code in there to get everything started, so when you do run the command to generate a boilerplate, you could instantly start a server and everything should work, and it should give you a nice layout and a nice baseline to build upon. So there's four options it will provide, like I said, web app, and there's also an API option. So that means that the create app script can be tailored towards an API or a web app based on how you wish to use it, as Drash is both great for APIs and full-on web apps. There's also two sub options that can be provided with the web app flag, and that is with React and with Vue. And what this means is that if you specify one of them, the script is also going to provide the front end of your web application with React or Vue support ready. So Webpack is already configured to build the front end and get everything working. So it takes away all of the necessary configuration and setup to get an application up and going. So what I'm going to do first is we're just going to run through those commands. So first, what we'll go with is probably the web app command. So if we just scroll down in the documentation, you can see that there's an API option, there's a web app option, and then within this you can provide the with React or with Vue. So actually, let's start with the API option, as that's the topmost one. So at this time of recording, Drash is at version 1.2.5, but Drash 1.3 will be hopefully releasing this Friday, and there are quite a few improvements, I believe, that might be with the create app script. So let's just run through this now. So let's copy that command, and then let's paste it in here, and that is not copying. There we go. So it does require allow run permissions because it's copying certain files and directories over from the source code over to your host machine. Allow read so it can write to some files. Allow read and allow write so it can read and write to some files, and allow net. And so that's really all this command is. Do now run with the permissions, point to the create app file, and then pass in the API flag. So I should know that I'm already in a directory of my choice, so the best thing to do is make a directory name, or make a directory for your project, an empty directory, and then cd into it, and then run the scripts, because it won't create the root directory for your project it won't at all. So you need to be within a directory where your project is going to lie. So let's just run that. There we go. If we make that a bit bigger, make that a bit smaller, I guess we can't. So you can see that it's going to copy content from the console directory, which is where the create app kind of boilerplate lies, and it's going to copy over to my host directory. And it's done that for quite a few files: deps file, config file, resources, the main app entry point file, and that's it. So let's look at what files we have. So if we just minimize that a bit again, and we'll look into this directory. So we have our main app file. So actually I should know that it does come with a deps file. I'll note this first, to kind of keep the maintenance of dependencies on scratch. And we have a config file. Should your web application need a certain config file, as most do, but it's more just here for utility, not needed at all. And I don't believe any files import this file, or the default export from the file. Then we have an app.ts file, which is where we create our server and run it. So you can see that because it's an API, the response output is defaulted to application JSON. Obviously, all of this can be changed, but it's more just a baseline. And yeah, it just starts a server on localhost port 1667 with a logger enabled, which is quite useful. There's a middleware directory created as well. Should it'd be useful to create your own middleware for your API, and a simple resource that's on the root path, and add in the get, post, delete, and put methods. Ignore the red squiggly lines. That's everything does work. It's just because my ID hasn't been set up with IntelliSense for that. But that's just, I don't mind that. So yeah, the resource is set up to handle certain requests basically. So it's going to send JSON down. And finally, it's provided a tests directory for your application and a basic test for your resource. So it's just going to create a server and then test it, make sure everything is okay. So it's going to provide a simple command that will tell us how to run the application. So let's run that. There we go. Now the server should be running, so let's curl. Let's make sure we get the right data. Let's make a curl request to localhost, and the port is 1667 on the root path, and that's all we need. And that's a typo on my part. There we go. Success true, message, get request received. So that's the API in a nutshell, really. So let's just remove all of this, just so we can start again. There we go. So now let's move on to a web app. So let's just copy this command here, clear that, paste it in, and run it. So you'll notice it just has the web app flag there. That's the only thing that's changed with this command. And it's going to write a few more files because it's not only the back end, but it's also the front end. So now let's look at what files it might change differently. So we still have the deps file, still have a config file, and we still have the app.ts file. And you also notice that the response output is different than the API, which is text HTML. That's because this is a web application, so it's generally going to be responding with HTML as a kind of a usual default response output. And we've got extra few configuration properties inside the server object, just to specify where our views are going to be. So start the test directory, start the resource directory, and in this example, it's going to render a HTML file for the GET request, I should note. And of course, a new public directory has been added. So this is going to be the the client side of your application. So we have the basic view, and then we have a simple JavaScript file and CSS file. Now this is more to, you build upon this, but it's more to show that this is how it ties together, and it's already tied together when you use your application, so you can just change anything you need to. So everything's already configured. So let's run the app. So I'll copy that command again. Let's paste that in, actually, because that server is still running. Let's paste that in and start the server. There we go. Now, let's make another curl request. So localhost port 1667, I believe. Yep. To the root path. There we go. Now you see it's responded with the HTML file. If you aren't familiar with how, how we're using the render method to display or render a view, it's best to check up on the documentation or video tutorials on how to do that first. So that's that's creating a boilerplate web application with the create app script. So now we can try with the with view and with React flags. So let's just remove everything again, clear it all down, just so we can start from scratch. Okay, there we go. So now let's try with the with React flag. So you still provide the web app flag, but also the with React. So let's paste that in and run it. We have the new additions for the React flag to support React for the front end. So we have a new React directory, which is going to be, which is pretty much the boilerplate. It's got a single user component, and then your main app component with React router set up and installed as well. So this will work outside of the box. And then the other three additions are obviously the package.json, which is going to also have a build React script to help transpile the React to be browser compatible. And then we have a tsconfig.json, which is going to help support having Deno and React within the same project, because without this, even specifically for having Deno in the same project, certain errors are going to be thrown. So here we're setting the compiler options, and specifically we're only wanting to include the React directory and exclude any of our Deno files or the Deno related TypeScript files. And then finally we have the webpack config, which is very similar to how the webpack config is set up for Vue. The entry point is going to be the main app file, and it's going to output into the public/js directory, and then obviously we have all of this extra settings and configurations to get the whole transpilation or the whole transpiling process to work. So that's the React and then let's try with the with view flag, which is just replacing with React with view. So we'll copy that, clear this down, paste that in and run it. There you go. Okay, so yeah, this example has Pod gave a view directory which has our basic view component to build from, sorry, and I'm mounting that view component for the front end. So we do have the webpack config .json file, webpack config.js file. This will transpile the view components to be browser compatible. Once it's loaded, for Vue.js, style sheets, Sass, and so on. And the other thing to note is the package.json is that this is also being provided mainly for the dependencies, and also for a script to build your front end for you. So what we can do now is we can run that. So let's do npm run build view, and it's just going to transpile your view directory. And that's because I haven't installed the dependencies. Let's give that a second to install. There we go. So that should be all installed. So let's try run npm run build view again. So if we look at the webpack config, it's going to look at the view/app.js file, and the output is going to be within the public/js directory. So there we go. That seems to have built all correctly. So then if we look in our public directory and the JS, we'll notice that the app.js file has been, it's been transpiled into an app.js file. So let's run this application. I'm just going to use -a for development. And that's because I'm still running a server on there. Let's try that again. There we go. So now let's make a curl command to localhost port 1667. There we go. So that's the with view flag down. Thank you for watching. That's pretty much all there is from me about the create